The African Solar Industry Association recently released its 2023 annual Solar Outlook report, which indicates another record year for solar energy around the world. The report, which includes a country-by-country analysis, noted the growing spread of solar adoption across the continent, which the industry group says is no longer limited to the hotspots of South Africa, Morocco, and Egypt. A total of 49 African countries are now said to be considering at least 1 megawatt of solar installations and 29 on more than 100 megawatts. I sat down to a chat on this with John Van Zulen, the CEO of Africa Solar Industry Association, and he tells me how solar is now spreading across the African continent. Now, talk me through the latest Africa Solar Outlook 2023 report.
Well, we've been releasing this report for 3 years now, really trying to collect as much data in a very transparent and easy way to understand what are the trends of solar across Africa. And as you rightly mentioned, solar in Africa used to be concentrated in just a handful of countries: Egypt, South Africa, Morocco, Kenya. The very interesting trends of the past year is that solar is now really spreading across the entire continent. South Africa, Egypt, Kenya remain big countries, but now we see more and more pockets of solar markets developing across the continent.
So how do you determine what type of energy is needed in a particular region, whether wind or solar, as well as capacity needed?
Well, there's really two levels of looking into this. There's at the national level, the authorities will determine some long-term plans in terms of what they expect to be the population growth and the power consumption growth, and they make power plant development plans accordingly. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. This is unfortunately the reality across the continent. But then again, you also have individuals and companies making their own choices based on their own unique needs, because this is now possible. Companies and individuals can procure their own solar projects for their own consumption. And this is really something very interesting happening throughout Africa.
Now, speaking about corporate PPAs, what are the pros and cons of the adoption of a corporate PPA and grid codes as policy measures to accelerate the clean energy transition?
Well, there's really big differences between countries in Africa. And to speak specifically about CNI, as we call it, the commercial and industrial segment, as well as the residential, for example, we see in South Africa and in Kenya very recent policy developments that now allow consumers to re-inject solar electricity into the grids and get some form of credit for this. This is called net metering, and this is really like a game changer in the solar industry because it allows for much bigger solar installations and in some cases covering up to 100% of your electricity consumption thanks to solar. So this is a really interesting trend to follow, something that AFSIA really tries to promote across the entire continent in cases where this is really beneficial, because this might not necessarily be beneficial for all countries across Africa. So it's really like a case-by-case basis.
That's interesting. So when it comes to a permanent energy source, will there come a time where we ditch the regular national grids, as you already know, that's what we're used to, and now go to solar 100%?
I don't think any reality of a country will be 100% without the grid, because in places where the grid already exists, it's beneficial. It's there and it's for everybody to use. Now, the reality is that in some countries, the grid is a little weak and not performing very well. And unfortunately, still in many, many locations across the continent, there simply is no grid. In those cases, well, people and companies are tempted to go, if they can afford it, are tempted to go 100% solar by themselves, off grid. And so this is potentially a risk for the national utility company. But you could also argue that this is a healthy pressure on the national utility company to provide a better service. So market forces play their role, and whenever people have an opportunity to get cheaper and more stable electricity through solar, it's only natural that they will make that choice.